Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. Today, I have a very special episode for you guys. I have Randy, aka R-Dub, aka the Sultan of Slowjamastan. Welcome, Sultan, to the podcast.
So glad to be here. We've been trying to set this up forever, so I have been looking forward to this. And man, we're going to have some. I think we're going to have some fun today.
Absolutely. I wasn't sure if I was going to get the Sultan in character or if I was going to get Randy, or so I think I'm getting Randy today.
It's always tough, right? But knowing what the topics we're going to talk about, I think what you guys do is so valuable. The Sultan is a very satirical dude and is always joking, so you don't know what if whatever he's saying is truth or not. So I thought I'd give you R-Dub/Randy. Because I'm just so excited to talk about really everything, including my latest move to Mexico and my citizenship and yeah, man, just get into it. But we can definitely talk about Slowjamastan. And for those who have no idea what you're talking about, the spoiler alert is I am a dictator as well of the world's newest country, which is the Republic of Slowjamastan, which is also a good place to move to if you don't need electricity or plumbing. So we'll talk about all of that coming up in the podcast. Did I just commandeer your podcast with the T's? I'm sorry.
No, I mean you have a background in radio, right? You've been on the radio for like 10 plus years.
I've been on the radio for can you believe it? For 30 years, since I was 15 years old, and I'm 49 now. So yeah, long time.
It's like when Rogan gets a guest that's like it's their very first podcast, and it's just there's just such a big talent differential in terms of like comfortability, even though we've done 250 plus episodes, but you're gonna outskill me here. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I don't know about that, but you are definitely an expert in this field, which I'm learning more and more about every single day, and it inspires me as it does your listeners. So yeah, man, I'm ready for it today.
I'm not sure. You might be more the expert than I am. So I'll help kind of build up your authority here too. So you've been to every country in the world.
Correct. I finished my mission in 2023 to see every country in the world, and it was just an incredible journey. And I'm not done traveling. I'm still traveling just as much, if not more now. But yeah, about 10 years ago, I took on the mission to see every country in the entire world. There's a few hundred people that have done it. More and more every day. There's more people taking the challenge, as days goes by. But yeah, every country in the world. And I recently finished, and it was exhilarating. And I like to think it made me into a better person in multiple ways.
I would like to think so. I mean, so Rick Gazarian, mutual friend, Counting Countries, he's been on the podcast twice. He recently told me about how at his conference, the Extraordinary Travel Conference, you were sort of like the opening act, and you introduced the Slowjamastan there. Could you tell people about that real quick? I thought it was a fun little story.
Absolutely. Well, first I should maybe tell them about Slowjamastan, because Slowjamastan is a country. I like to say it's the newest country in the world. We declared our independence in 2021, and we have over 22,000 registered citizens, none of which actually live in Slowjamastan. As I mentioned, we don't have electricity or plumbing yet. Spoiler alert, it's an 11-acre patch of dirt in the desert in Southern California. And I know this podcast is not video, but you can see behind me, this is Slowjamastan, and what you're looking at is a plot of desert land with a sign. But it's, I mean, some people say it's cosplay. I think it goes beyond that, but I do dress up in a Colonel Gaddafi type dictator suit. We have laws, including no Crocs, the shoes, Crocs. That's our biggest value and foundation of the Republic of Slowjamastan is Crocs are not allowed. We have passports, we have currency, we have a kick-ass national anthem. Everything is done in satire and fun. It is a great rabbit hole to go down. And I was asked to speak at the travel festival in Bangkok. So I did, with my uniform and about 7 Secret Service gentlemen around me. Rick put on an amazing travel show. I'm not one for group travel and or conferences. I detest both of those things, but I went because Rick invited me, and I think I'm going to go every time now. I've already committed to the next one just to go as a guest. You got to go to this, man. It's an incredibly well put together travel conference, and I loved it for so many different reasons. But yeah, I opened the show. I didn't know how I'd do, but apparently the ratings were in. The critics said that it was pretty good, so it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Now I got to be careful where I take that uniform to, because I cannot show up in North Korea or Libya with a Sultan uniform. They will throw me in jail, thinking I'm trying to protest or play some kind of prank or take over their country. So you got to be very careful where the Sultan character comes out. I recently got back from Benghazi, Libya. I went to Libya for my second trip last September, and apparently most of those guys hate Gaddafi, right? And I was so worried that I didn't bring my uniform, but I was so worried that they were going to, look me up on social media, because not many people go to Benghazi. So security's pretty tight, and sometimes they do background checks. And I was so afraid they were going to see all these photos and videos of me dressed up like Gaddafi saying, "What the hell are you doing here?" But luckily they did not. And it was a nice, very nice trip.
And you recently became a Mexican citizen via naturalization?
I did, yes.
And do you have like a Mexican spouse or anything, or is like pure play naturalization?
So, yeah, it's interesting. And I'm one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. I'm so grateful and so happy, and I have a lot of gratitude. And it's the toughest test I took in my life. I got a citizenship by residency, so I have a place there, and I have had an address there, and I've technically, at least the paperwork shows that I've lived there for over 5 years. And so that's one way you can become a citizen, is by living there.
5 years of residency, and then in the last 2 years, 18 months in a 24-month period.
Exactly. And let me tell you, man, they looked at my passport. As you mentioned, you have to be in Mexico 18 months out of the 24 months. And they looked at my passport, and they saw that in the last 24 months, I had visited, 42 countries. And obviously they're like, well, then how is that possible? Of course you haven't been here. But I had to explain, well, hey, I see 10 countries in 12 days. So, but yeah, it almost didn't happen. And I was really, really, really worried it would get kicked back. It was a kind of a bureaucratic nightmare. It is for a lot of people coming to the US too. I definitely, and I understand that it's a lot harder to become an American citizen. So I don't want to downplay that at all, but yeah, for me,
your case actually would have been harder than the average person, just because your stamp situation looked insane.
I was there taking the test, and then you hand over your passport, and the lady looked at it, and you can see her eyes like got so huge, and she's like, whoa, where a lot of people in my group, most of them from Venezuela and from Cuba, trying to get citizenship, they may have one or two stamps in their passport. I came with 2 valid U.S. passports, the thick books with double the pages, and they were like, aye, but they were really, really nice. And helped me craft a letter in person, outlining my mission and why I had all those stamps. And thank goodness it didn't get kicked back. And then it was just a lot of waiting for the final call to say, all right, come and get your paperwork and sign off. You're going to be a Mexican. It was,
and they say the test is pretty hard.
Hardest test of my life. 700 of the most random facts you have to memorize. Now, they give you 10 questions of those, but you got to know 700 of them, because if you don't, chances are, you're going to get a question or two that you don't know. So 700 of the most grueling, craziest facts. Some of them were easy, but the other ones, and I'm not exaggerating, one of the questions is something like, how many kilos I'm going to make this name up. I don't even remember. I have horrible retention skills. But, how many kilos did Ana Garcia bench press to win the silver medal in the 1972 Olympics in Mexico City? 172, 176, or 202? I'm like, what? And so that, times that by 700. I mean, we're talking politics and articles of the Constitution and names of battles. Man, it was crazy, but I did it 100%. And today I'm a Mexican citizen, and I'm proud, and I'm really happy.
Congrats, man. I'm going to have to go through this at some point in the future. I'm a permanent resident. So it's 10 questions only?
So there's three parts to the questions. Yep, to the test. There are 10 questions of history, culture, politics, sports, etc. 10 of those questions. The other is a very, very basic Spanish language test, spoken, which is an interview, and pretty easy. What's your name? Where were you born? Why do you want to become a citizen of Mexico? I believe those were literally the three questions. I was afraid they were going to start tripping me up with prepositions and past participles and future tenses. Nope. What's your name? Where were you born? Why do you want to become a citizen of Mexico? And there was the third part is a short reading comprehension. And that was cool too. That was easy. You read a quick story, and then there are some very easy softball questions at the end of the story. Like, what color was the ant in this legend? And you're like, oh, the color of the ant was red. So those were easy, but the whole interview process itself was all in Spanish. So there were a few times, and you can't bring anyone else. You can't bring your attorney in or anything. So, you're on the other side of the desk. They're not necessarily testing you, but they're asking you questions about the forms, etc. And there were a few times where I just kind of nodded. I'm like, see, and I had no idea what I was answering. So.
Okay, so where would you place your Spanish? You're familiar with like the system, like A1, A2, B1, B2. Where would you kind of place your Spanish?
I am not familiar with those numbers and letters. What are those? I don't know what you speak.
I guess it's like the European rating system where it's like a six grade scale of like language fluency.
I'm going to look that scale up because I usually tell people that my fluency is that of a 3-year-old. So that is it. I mean, I can, I'm fine to get by, and I've lived in Brazil for years, so I speak Portuguese as well. But for some reason, I don't know if any of your other listeners have this issue, but I've been studying Spanish since I was in high school, seriously studying it, really wanting to master the language, and I hit a ceiling. I hit a ceiling, and I'm just not as conversational as I'd like to be. I know some gringos that speak the King Spanish or speak the perfect slang as well, and I'm so jealous of them. And I'm like, God, why can't I get there?
Let's give like one quick question, just put you on. So, cuando te preguntaron por qué querías ser mexicano, ¿qué dijiste?
Ellos me dijeron mi lugar de nacimiento y mi nombre y mis desires vivir en México y las razones por qué. So there you go.
¿Y qué dijiste? ¿Cuál fue tu razón?
Yo dije, me llamo Randy Williams y me encanta México por muchas razones: la cultura, la historia, la gente, la comida, las mujeres, la tierra.
Hopefully you didn't say that on your
I think I did. I think I made him smile. Yes. So yeah, basic stuff like that. So you can tell right now, like I already screwed up the first question you asked me. So, but man, look, I'm excited for my future in Mexico. I do currently kind of go back and forth, and currently I'm living in San Diego. But I just bought a place as a citizen in Mexico, and my next stop, after my current job with the radio station, when that expires, hopefully it's not soon, but you never know, I will make a permanent move to Mexico. So
what state? What's your go-to state in Mexico?
So this is, man, I feel like I've discovered something that no one else has, almost like a secret. In fact, I'm going to open up a consultancy just to help gringos settle in this one particular place. And there is a little pocket of Tijuana called Playas de Tijuana, so the beaches of Tijuana. And it is literally almost like an enclave. It's separated from the giant, crazy, noisy, fast metropolis of Tijuana, which is an amazing city, but it's almost completely cut off. And it's this little pocket on the beach, separated by a mountain. There's one way in and there's one way out, and it literally touches San Diego. So the border,
it's literally right on the border there.
And it's a secret, I think, because all the gringos are going south to Rosarito or further south or into the Mexican mainland. And my whole selling point of this place is, it's great to live in a foreign country, but when I lived in Brazil, I missed the U.S. I missed my family. I missed Chipotle. I missed some of the American food. I miss going to IKEA. Imagine if you could seriously have the best of both worlds. If you can be 10 minutes away from everything you love in America, but also live in another country. So I'm a huge flag waver of Playas de Tijuana, and it has not been discovered yet It's just starting to get a little bit gentrified. So it's a great opportunity. It's a great place for people to start. Yeah.
I mean, it looks pretty organized and stuff. Is it pretty safe?
I think so. It's very, very tranquil. I don't know the statistics, so I'm not sure if I'm qualified to say how safe it is. It certainly passes the vibe check. And,
Okay.
you know, as I mentioned, it's one way in and one way out. So it's just, it's very chill. And I love it there.
Yeah, yeah. I've definitely thought about this. I mean, I'm not a California guy, but to have that, I've considered living in Tijuana just to have that direct access to the U.S. drivable, and also be on the beach, of course. So yeah, there's definitely something there.
Yeah, hold on, let me drop one more piece of information as far as something there is. If you picture a map of California and you go up north of Los Angeles, let's just pick Santa Barbara, and you go Santa Barbara all the way south to the border. So you're going to go through Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, etc. About 90% of that is livable coastline. So you're looking at about 190 miles of livable flat coastline with homes and apartments and condos and businesses. What happens when you hit the border fence is really interesting. Once you hit the fence, you get about 1.5 miles of livable coastline only one. It's just the tiniest of pockets of livable coastline. And then you hit a giant stone mountain and a highway for at least, 15 or 20 miles.
Right. Punta
So my point is,
Banderas and that type of stuff.
yeah, my point is you've got this huge city of Tijuana with this tiny, tiny, tiny little pocket of sand, of beach, which to me makes it even more valuable. So that's just another reason to pick playas, especially if you're looking for an investment.
I think you make a good case. So I kind of want to know how this all got started for you. I really like how you've gone to every country in the world, but you've also done something cool with it, which is build Slowjamastan. And you obviously have a similar intellectual interest to me in the enclaves and in micronations and all this type of stuff. To give you some context, we've tried to interview a lot of the different micronation founders and people who are doing, special economic zones like Prospera and Honduras and, network state type projects. So we're really interested in these types of things. Some of them are more modern. Some of them are old school, like the, Ceuta in Morocco, as we were talking about offline. And so how did you kind of get are you just like a geography nerd, or how did this kind of get started for you?
It's a great question. And if the Sultan of Slowjamastan were here, he would be 100% in character, a very sarcastic, dry humor. He would tell you about his mission to rid the world of crocs, and that the U.S. government did not listen to his pleas. So, he could have had a violent uprising, but instead he's a peaceful man. So he annexed 11 acres in the desert to make it the first croc-free country in the world, etc. But alas, you don't have the Sultan today. You've got R-Dub, you've got Randy. So, I will tell you the 100% truth of how my micronation evolved, and also tell you the lack of seriousness in it. Because a lot of times we get folks, the sovereign citizen folks, the people that want to leave America because they're upset the way the government is, the people that want to live off the grid, and they don't really get the satire of Slowjamastan. And it's like, I want to tell them, it's like, guys, you got to look at us, dude. We ban crocs. We're literally not serious. So how Slowjamastan came about was, I was on my mission to see every country in the world. And the pandemic and the closures from COVID had not ended. And so I was kind of in the middle of a few months where I did not have a trip planned to a foreign country. And I was getting itchy. I was getting antsy. Travel for me is like a drug. And I love home. I love home more than I've ever loved before, but I also need to leave often. And so I had nowhere to go. And I had heard about a place in Nevada that was, quote unquote, its own country. And so I said, you know what, maybe it's time to explore this place. So this micronation is called Molossia, and I booked a ticket to Reno, Nevada. Took my best friend. We rented a car and we cruised a couple hours into the barren desert of Reno, out of Reno, Nevada, into this little country called Molossia. And Molossia is a gentleman named Kevin Baugh. His country is basically his property around his house. It's a few acres, and he does a few tours every year. And so we said, yeah, we'll play along, and we joined the tour. And the guy comes out dressed as a general and gives us a tour of his property, and he has all these little things set up. He has basically these little shacks set up. One shack is a tiki bar, the other shack is a national bank. He has a little salt mine. It's all this fun miniature stuff, and we went along with it, and it was a lot of fun. And I didn't realize it was that day that the seed to Slowjamastan, my micronation, was planted. I don't have a big yard at my house, and I never honestly considered having my own micronation, but almost as a child is conceived when you make love to a woman, sometimes you don't know that you got her pregnant until 3 weeks later, because the seed's always there, but you don't realize it until the morning sickness kicks in. That was my analogy with Slowjamastan. The seed was planted, but I didn't even know until weeks later. I'm on Zillow looking for land, and once I get a bug up my ass to do something, once I get a vision, honestly, man, there's no stopping me. And that's both a good and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because I do stupid shit like buy my own country. I was on Zillow and I found the perfect property. There's 11 acres. It was right off of a highway in a very quirky area of Southern California, far away from Los Angeles, in an area called Imperial County, also home to the Salton Sea, to a place called Slab City, not far from Joshua Tree, California. So a really neat area that's not too crowded, but there's some very artsy things around there. I bought the land. I put a big green sign up that said Republic of Slowjamastan, and then I let the internet just do its thing. And after about a week, man, people were posting about it on Reddit, just curious as hell, like, what is this? And within 6 months, we became the most popular, most famous micronation, at least at the time, in the world.
Because the sign is visible from the highway?
Yeah. In fact, we had to move it because it was actually a little too close to the highway. Apparently, we were on the easement that belonged to the state of California. So the California Highway Transportation District put a red ticket on it and like, yeah, this is on our side. I'm like, all right. So we had to move it a few feet in, but it got some great, like next to highway exposure for at least a year. And then we had to move it about 50 feet in. But yeah, it's very, very visible. Our flag flies very tall. We've got an immigration booth checkpoint, a gate that opens up and down. Yep. We're building more stuff. It's been a blast.
So they encroached on your sovereignty.
Well, we kind of encroached on theirs, actually. If you look, I hired a surveyor out there to measure our land, and yeah, we were a little bit outside of the border of Slowjamastan and the United States. But man, let me tell you, man, it is so much fun, and people come by and take photos almost every day. The people that aren't there can visit online virtually. It's a breath of fresh air, especially in today's, the drama and divisiveness of everything that's happening today. It doesn't matter what side you're on. It's very fatiguing to see everybody fight and everybody argue. It's a great place to get away. We don't allow politics except, of course, our own. And, we don't talk about Trump or Biden or left or right or, labels are forbidden in Slowjamastan. It's all about us and the dictatorship that is Slowjamastan. And I am a dictator, and I do rule with an iron fist.
I love how it's Republic of, though.
So the full name is the United Territories of the People. The United Territories of the Sovereign Nation of the People's Republic of Slowjamastan. So.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Job Stacking. If you're a remote or hybrid worker looking to maximize your earning potential, then Rolf Haltza, author of Job Stacking, guarantees you'll be able to double your income by implementing his paycheck multiplication layering method. This is the exact system Rolf has used to take his own income and those of many others beyond $20K a month. With this method, Rolf contractually guarantees that you'll be able to double your income in 45 days. So, if you're interested in unleashing your earning potential and doubling your income, then click the link in the description and book a call with Rolf right now. It's awesome. And so you put up a website and people can sign up to apply for citizenship?
So we put up a website, and we did. I mean, we've done so much. We have passports. Citizenship is free. Yeah, you can sign up to become a citizenship. I forgot to charge my citizens taxes, so to offset the costs of Slowjamastan that the Sultan bears by his own. We do sell a lot of merchandise, but it's important to know, man. This thing got out of control, man. We got into NATO last year, so all of a sudden, Slowjamastan appears in Washington D.C. at the NATO summit, and
How's
all
that?
these. What's that?
What do you mean? What do you mean you're?
Oh yeah,
What do you mean you appeared at NATO?
we were at you. After the podcast, I want you to Google it, and you can see video and pictures of us. I think you're doing that now. You can type in Slowjamastan NATO and see photos of us there. We were interviewed by international media. They swarmed us because they were so excited to have direct access to a dictator. Probably the most
Yes, at the
memorable
NATO
week of my
summit.
life at NATO. So yeah, no, I mean, it's out of control. For example, I got a parking ticket. I was in the Slowjamastan police car at the San Diego airport, and I helped the lady with her bags. So I left the SUV in the no parking zone, and they sent me a ticket in the mail. So I fought the ticket in uniform in court. I mean, it was a freaking blast. So I mean, the places we take Slowjamastan, it's amazing. I was a guest. Oh, I wasn't a guest. I snuck into a dinner of diplomats from 30 different countries in Havana, Cuba. I met with a Syrian ambassador, so I'm probably on the watch list. I mean, dude, we're taking this thing all the way, man. There's no stopping us.
Right. You get diplomatic plates on the car, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. And Microcon. So Microcon existed before you guys, where all the micronations get together, right? And I think like Molossia was essentially like the most quote unquote successful micronation by some measures. And then you guys came in and you were like instantly the hit of Microcon, right?
So I mean, some people hated us, by the way, and they still do, and that's okay. I think hopefully we've won most of the people over, but MicroCon is, as you can imagine, is a convention, a conference for all the different micronations around the world. And I think MicroCon has been happening at least, I think they've done it at least 4 or 5 times. Well, of course, we heard about it. I'm like, we got to be there. We got to do it. And so we show up at the very first MicroCon, and you can tell, man, some of these micronationalists that take it really, really, really seriously. You know, these guys, and I'm not insulting them at all. Mad respect for what they do, but these guys are, you know, they take their constitutions and their treaties and their alliances very seriously. Like that's the part of the hobby that they enjoy. They enjoy drafting constitutions and articles, and nothing's, you know, none of this is a joke to them, right? They are drafting treaties and alliances, and everything is super serious. And then other people, including Molossia, we have fun with it. So I think at least 1 or 2 of these guys were like, how the hell did Slowjamastan get so famous overnight? We've been doing this for, 15, 20 years. And here comes this clown, the Sultan, what the heck? And we show up and we show up with our Secret Service people, and we almost got kicked out because I didn't know they were going to do this, but my Secret Service people are really good, man. They blocked the bathrooms while the Sultan relieved himself. And when we left and we're walking down the hall, one of the guys was like, "You cannot do this. We're going to have to ask you to leave if you're causing a commotion." And so, like, relax. So we've gone to our second MicroCon in Chicago a couple years ago, which was fun as well. And we're putting a bid to host the next MicroCon in 2027. I like to think that we've won most of those people over by now. They are wonderful people, and I appreciate and respect what they do. So that was kind of MicroCon in a glimpse.
And what's your relationship like now with Kevin from Molossia?
I've always loved Kevin, and I think he likes me. He's always been a supporter of everybody and everybody. For example, I'll tell you why I love Kevin, and I think what a selfless guy this guy is. Even on his website, he has a webpage all about how to make your micronation. Kevin is an inspiration and a mentor for so many people, especially the kids. There are a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers, and even preteens, 9, 10, 12-year-olds that are into micronationalism, and they claim their room or their backyard or their city park. And Kevin has always been a great inspiration and mentor for them. So I try to be the same thing. I try to take a cue from Kevin and help people out when, a lot of times it's kids that are writing me asking for help or asking me to recognize them, etc. But again, Kevin was one of our main inspirations. And he's just a good guy. And I cherish his friendship. So.
And where does Lieberland fit into do they attend MicroCon at all?
I don't think so. I don't know a lot about them, and so I'm so sorry. I'm a little ignorant in that in that part. I know they're one of the most well known. I don't know a lot about them, so it's something that I need to research a little bit. Were they the ones that were selling passports for a while for a lot of money, or am I getting?
There's definitely a way to obtain a passport. You have to contribute, or
okay,
yeah, I guess you can buy it or whatever, because they're on the Croatia-Serbia border, if I'm not mistaken, and they found there was a no man's land, and they sort of took over this island on the river. I think it's the Danube River.
That's right.
And that's Lieberland, and they've actually taken some steps to get recognized by Somaliland.
Okay.
The breakaway is sort of part of Somalia, and they've been trying to get some more recognition from different places. I think Haiti recognized them and things like that, because ultimately that's what a country is when all the other countries recognize you, that's kind of where it turns.
So yes and no, and that's such a common misperception or misconception. And I learned this from Kevin Baugh from Molossia. If you look at one of the most important documents, which is called the Montevideo Convention, I'm just going to spitball this. I hope I don't misquote it, but there are a number of boxes to check that makes a country a country. None of those boxes include recognition. The boxes include a population, a defined border, a government, and the ability to enter into relations with other states and other governments. Nowhere in the Montevideo Convention does it talk about you must be recognized by someone else. And that's one of Kevin's, or President Baugh's, that's one of his main issues that he stands on is, hey, you don't need to be recognized by anybody to be a country. So I like that. Now, that being said, I have sent some letters out to some of the smaller countries and ask for recognition as well. So that's as a side note, that's something we do kind of just for fun, because it would be really cool to have another UN nation actually say that they recognize us.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you in part by Crema Social. Crema Social is like TikTok for international dating. It's an app you can download right now on your phone, and 3 out of 4 people on Crema are single women. The app was founded in Colombia, so unsurprisingly, there are a lot of Latinas on the app, by the way. So how does it work? Crema Social is a social meal experience where you invite a hot girl for a lunch date via video call and food delivery. New concept, so you'll have to try it out for yourself, but this is probably the best way to meet Latinas before you visit the country. So if you're in Latin America or planning to visit Latin America, download Crema Social now and start getting dates right away. There will be a link in the description to download, or just search Crema Social on your favorite app store. Have fun, guys. Well, these things take time, but it seems like you're on the path.
I would like to start visiting more micronations, and I will tell you that my attempts have been futile to visit Sealand. And my only disappointment is, and I don't mind saying this publicly, they haven't even responded to us, which is a bummer, because I've always tried to make it a point to respond to anyone and everyone that reaches out in any aspect of life, whether it's the radio business, whether it's an artist reaching out to my radio station asking for radio play, or someone who wants to be on the air, an aspiring DJ. I remember as a kid reaching out to radio stations and being ignored by about 95% of them. and the people that shine through were always the exceptions to the rule, the 1 out of 100 program directors that actually picked up the phone and called me and gave me some words of encouragement. You can think of Kevin Baugh as that on the micronational end. Kevin reaches back to people. I love that. Kind of bummed out I never heard back from Sealand, because I went out to the UK last year and I really, really wanted to visit. And so I wrote them a few letters and said, hey, can I please visit? And I got no response in return. But they're quick to take your money if you'd like to buy their merchandise. So, shots fired.
Did you see the Rose Island movie?
I know, and I'm a horrible micronationalist for not seeing that movie. It's in my queue.
It's good. It's genuinely a good movie.
Yeah.
You have to watch that, dude,
I'll do
because it's like a little platform they made off the coast of Italy. And he like goes all the way to the Supreme Court of the European Union with this thing. It's a good movie. You really should see it.
I'm going to do it.
I want to hear more about just the travels around the world. And are you particularly trying to visit the exclaves when you do your, because a lot of people who just want to get the 193 or 197 out of the way, they might not be going to the exclaves because they're difficult to get to, cost more money, more time, and it doesn't fit into that easier goal. But going to the exclaves, you probably know there's like the most traveled person rankings, and there's, 1,200 different regions and territories to visit for that. Do you keep that in mind, the MTP or those other larger classifications of different territories? And do you make an effort to try to visit the exclaves and break-offs and all the different things?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes and no. The only list that I was particularly very strict and very motivated about and steadfast about completing in a hurry was the UN list, was the UN 193 list. There are other lists. I enjoy the TCC list, the Travel Century Club list, which is, I think, 200 and some odd countries and territories. I'd like to finish that list. But the answer is I'm not super strict or disciplined about that, but I do it for enjoyment. And I get an absolute huge kick about visiting some of the lesser known territories. For example, Ceuta, which is situated in Morocco in the continent of Africa, that belongs to Spain. The fact that none of my regular friends, meaning the people that aren't seeing every country in the world, none of my regular friends and colleagues ever could imagine that part of Spain was in Africa. Like, I love that stuff. It excites me so much. And I think the very first country or territory that made me realize this was the country of Suriname. Now, Suriname is a fully fledged independent country, but it used to be Dutch Guyana in South America. And the fact that I'm in a country with an economy and a culture and a people and a language and borders and all of the above, multi-generational population, yet none of my friends, not one of them, none of my friends or family back home had even heard of this country. I want you to think about that for a second. Like, to me, that is mind-blowing. I'm in an entire, and we're not talking about micronations. We're not talking about someone's backyard. We're talking about a full country with thousands of square miles. Sure. And as I mentioned, an economy and borders and a president. We're talking about a country this established that, again, that none of my friends or family has ever even heard of. Yet I'm there and I'm looking around and I'm listening to people speak Dutch and I'm eating Surinamese food and looking at this weird Dutch architecture in the middle of the Amazon. It was Suriname that flipped me, that really said, wow, there's some weird places out here and you got to see them. On that same trip, I went to French Guiana, which is a territory of France in the Amazon. So I'm in the freaking Amazon. I'm hearing all the noises of the bugs and the birds and the animals, and people are speaking French, and I'm looking around and the architecture is French and I'm eating the Frenchest of food. Yet I'm in the Amazon and I'm right above Brazil near the Caribbean. Again, like my friends weren't even believing me when I was explaining what was happening. They're like, where are you? So the answer is yes. Those places get me off. And I do want to see more of those places. Yeah, man, it's exciting. And I think those places are really neat.
You mentioned you were in a rush. Why were you in a rush to complete it?
That's a good question. I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think no, I know why. I do know why. And in fact, I wrote an article about this. This was my philosophy in my travel philosophy. In fact, some travel purists would even criticize me of the way I traveled because they would say, "Well, how can you possibly say you visited a country if you've only been there for 30 hours?" My philosophy and was this: is that the world is a giant buffet of foods that I've never tried before. Okay, specifically 193 dishes. I want to take a bite, one small bite. I want to take one taste, one nibble of all 193. And I want to decide which ones I like, which ones I want to come back for more with a bigger plate, meaning come back and stay longer, and which ones that I have no desire for, like the Brussels sprouts. Oh, I don't like the Brussels sprouts. Cameroon to me was the Brussels sprouts. Was in Cameroon 2 days. It's enough for me. I have no desire to visit Cameroon ever again. Japan, on the other hand, or I won't be unfair to Africa, Libya or Algeria or Eritrea, even Somalia, those are dishes I really liked. So I took a nibble. I'm gonna come back and spend more time there. I'm gonna come back with a plate for a second, a third, a fourth helping. And so I wanted to finish 193 very quickly. I don't know, just to kind of get it done. I also realized that countries open and close all the time. There are a ton of people stuck at 192, and we're not able to get into North Korea or Turkmenistan, et cetera. So I kind of wanted, when I have a goal, I want to complete the goal quickly. And so that was where my head was at. So now that I've finished 193, I'm absolutely loving going back to places and spending a week or 2 weeks there.
So I'm pretty down to get started. I've been more slow travel, I guess, to this point, but I'm very nomadic. I have the capability. What advice do you have for me in terms of, strategically or whatever, starting to tackle the 193?
Well, and I'll just go back to the other reason why I did it very quickly is, I would never criticize any other person's travel style. We all have our own travel style. I think we all agree the only one rule that is consistent among all travelers is you got to leave the airport, right? There's a few people that have tried to, do some Guinness Book of World Records and haven't left the air. You got to leave the airport. A lot of people's consensus is to count a country as a visit is you must leave the airport and you must do something local. You must have some kind of interaction. You got to go into town, either eat a meal, talk to some people, walk through a market. You got to do something that you get a taste of being local. But yeah. So the advice for me to you would be not to, I'm not trying to influence your travel style, but look, Turkmenistan was my final country. Okay. I flew into Turkmenistan with very low expectations. I flew into Turkmenistan telling myself, dude, you've been to 192 countries. What is there out there that you possibly haven't seen yet, right? What culture, what feeling, what type of people, what type of landscape or architecture, like what could possibly still be left after 192 countries? And I went in with very low expectations. And would you believe that Turkmenistan landed in my top 3 countries of all time? Turkmenistan is a trip that I would absolutely live there tomorrow. If there was a job for me there, if there was a radio job or a way that I could do my radio show, sign me up. I would go to Turkmenistan in a second. Fun fact, I'm on their blacklist. I am not allowed in Turkmenistan because they figured me out that I was the Sultan and that I was in the media. And they don't like media in Turkmenistan. I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but that's a fun fact. We could talk about that later. But my advice to you would be is, there are people that travel slow and that are expert travelers because they go places and they stay a month or they still stay 3 months. And that's amazing if they could do that. But by doing that, you don't know what else is out there, and your favorite country in the world may be waiting in the wings for you, but because you're steadfast on, no, I need to stay somewhere for 2 months, so my advice would be, if you're looking for somewhere to live, it's like, man, I don't know. I'd say do 193, because you never know what that country is out there that's going to make you excited, and it's different for everyone. You could go to Papua New Guinea and say, God, I really want to live here. Or you could tomorrow go to Moldova and find the love of your life, find a woman in Moldova. You would have never known that if you're going so slow. So my thing is, I love the aspect of a big buffet and just take a nibble of everything once, because you never know.
No, I'm not even saying like compared to slow travel. That's just kind of how I've historically done it. So I've kind of been to a pretty low number of countries. I don't know if it's 25 or something like that. But I'm down to get surgical. I'm down to start ripping it, right? What advice do you have to someone to like really like get things going? Like do the hardest ones first, apply to a whole bunch of African visas at the same time.
Okay. Yep.
Like give me some Hey guys, quick break from the episode to tell you about BitRefill. BitRefill allows you to shop online and in person without banks, converting your crypto directly into merchant balance. We're talking gift cards to Nike, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, Hotels.com, and many more, all paid for with crypto. BitRefill offers more than 10,000 gift card options in 180 countries all across Latin America, including Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, and many more. You can also apply the code MyLatinLife at checkout to get 10% back on your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
I get it. Nope. So I understand the question better now. Literally the advice, if you want to start ripping through countries, great. No, this is fantastic. So for me, I did the hardest ones first, and I 100% agree. Very few people do the hard ones first. It's human nature. I think people just leave the hard ones to the end. I did most of the hard ones first. In fact, I did 99% of the hard ones. I got out of the way because I was scared, man. And the one thing that it taught me is, dude, the world is not as dangerous as you think it is. So, for example, my very first trip to Africa, I didn't mess around, dude. I went to Libya, which was probably stupid. You should probably ease into Africa a little bit more. And my dumb ass goes to Libya, but that made the rest of Africa so easier. So I say, number one, I say absolutely you should do the hard ones first, 1,000,000,000%, because then you're on cruise control for the rest. So do the hard ones first. African visas are the worst. I would say if you haven't already, get a second passport. Are you a U.S. citizen, by the way?
Yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen.
Get a second passport, which you can get very easily. That way you can be without your passport for many months. Number three, man. I mean, Africa was one of the toughest countries to travel through. Those are my main tips, and you hit the nail on the head. Get the hard ones out first. You never know what countries are going to close or what countries are going to go to war. Right now, Sudan is very hard to travel in. And then I think the other question is, or I think the other thing is, ask yourself, why am I doing this? And be comfortable with the answer. Like, truly, everyone has a different reason. For me, it literally was for fun, and it was for a personal goal. And here's what's crazy, right? We have friends that would never dream of going to the Congo or never dream of going to Central African Republic. I like to look at my life 30 years ago. I wouldn't have went to Central African Republic if you paid me. Like, hell no. Why would I want to be there? It's dangerous. They're going to kill me. There's no amenities. It's not comfortable, etc. But once your mind is once you have the right perspective and your mind's in the right place. So for me, I asked myself, I said, why am I doing this? And once I had a clear answer, the answer was two things: because it's fun and I want to challenge myself. And once I was one with those answers, it made going to shitty places, and no offense to Central African Republic, I don't mean to pick on them. I'm just kind of looking at my map. That was a tough place to travel. I didn't really enjoy Papua New Guinea as a vacationer, but as someone who wanted to explore different cultures and see 193, I loved it.
What's it like now? Have you experienced sort of like reverse culture shock when you come back to the States as someone that's been to every country in the world?
The weirdest feeling in the world to me is being abroad, especially when you're in places like Africa or the Pacific, when you're in lesser developed regions of the world and you settle in and your mind starts to get used to the speed of those countries. For example, so many places in Africa that don't even have paved roads. You're trying to literally travel somewhere that in the US would take you maybe 90 minutes or 3 hours to get to, and it takes you 2 days. The human mind is resilient at adjusting. So the answer to that is, yeah, man, it's crazy when you're coming back from a place like that and your mind and your body and your senses have adjusted. And then overnight you're dumped into O'Hare or the Atlanta International Airport and you're walking around American tourists dressed in sweats and Crocs, sipping on Starbucks, carrying around their Stanley cups and listening to their iPods. It's crazy. For me, it's been an incredible way to open my mind and open my heart. I used to be a little bit racist isn't the word, but I was, I maybe had Islamophobia, especially after 9/11 and after, seeing what happened on 9/11, horrible, horrible time in our history and listening to the news and the talk radio, et cetera. And my first Muslim country was Senegal. And I remember seeing guys running around at the airport when I landed, seeing guys in robes and caps and beards running around. And I'm like, oh my God, these people hate me. And I was honestly really scared. For example, my first taxi ride that night in Dakar, which is an amazing city, but I was not well traveled at all. And I'm kind of cowering in the back of the taxi thinking like, what did I do? What horrible mistake did I do? These guys are going to kidnap me. And I remember checking into my hotel, looking for an exit if they bust in and want to take me away. And, 2 days later, I just look back at myself and how much I've grown and how silly that was. And some of my favorite people live in the Middle East. The Middle East is some of my favorite places to go. So I'm really going all around and off track here, but I think that's a very important part of traveling is it really opens your mind. And it goes without saying, I don't feel that way at all, the way I felt 20 years ago. And no one could have taught me that. That's the thing. There were plenty of people shaking their fingers telling me, oh, I was wrong. And you don't be prejudiced. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to experience that for yourself and you got to learn it yourself. And, the person wagging their finger at me, in my college class, that's not going to really teach me. You got to go out and do it yourself. So it's opened my heart. The other thing, it's given me gratitude. I talked about some of the roads and the conditions in Africa and the Pacific. People in the U.S. don't even realize, they take for granted the simple thing about working stoplights, working intersections and highways. So it's opened my heart. It's helped me love. It's opened my mind, but it's also made me it's made me grateful for some of the things back in the more developed nations, including the U.S.
So your radio show is Sunday night slow jams, thus Slowjamastan. What happens when you travel? Is there no Sunday night slow jams, or are you like pre-recorded, or what do you do for that?
So when I travel, I do pre-record the show. The show is actually 5 nights a week. So we do slow jams, which is a trademark that I own of my company, and then we do Sunday nights, and then I also do the afternoon show locally here in San Diego. I have a fill-in for that show, but for my slow jam show, yeah, I do a pre-recorded version with callers and dedications, and been doing that since I was 15 years old. That's definitely my baby, and we're on about 230 radio stations, including Suriname. By the way, we're on in Suriname, we're on in Lagos, Nigeria, and some other countries, which is really, really, really cool as well. Especially when listeners call and they hear an American guy on the radio, they assume correctly that it's an American show, but then they call me and I get to talk about their town and I'm like, how are things in Paramaribo, and how are things here, how are things there, and they're like, wait a minute, how do you know? I go, no, I've been there. And that's really, really cool to talk to listeners on that
that's
level.
The best part is, It's like, oh, what country are you from? Yeah, I've been there.
So my favorite thing along that line, my favorite nerd thing to do, and I love this so much, especially when friends are around and they can witness it. And I have about a 75, maybe 80% success rate. My favorite thing is to guess where someone is from down to the city. And let me tell you, man, my friends freak out. We were in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and a lady came up to me and we're talking. And I have to preface it first because a lot of people are put off when you say, "Where are you from?" Because, they're like, "Well, America," but no, where are you really from? You know what I'm saying? Like they think they want to be American. No, I'm American, right? But they're wearing a hijab and they're talking with an accent, and so I'm cognizant of that. So I always lead with, "Hey, I love to travel. May I guess where you're from originally? May I guess?" You ask with respect. I'm like, "Don't tell me. May I guess?" And they're like, "Yeah, you can guess." They're like, "You'll never guess." And I look at a woman, and it was a woman in this case, and I look at her and I say, "Okay." I go, "Yes or no? You're from Central Asia, right?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I go, and I look. I don't even say the country. I go right to the city. I go, "You're from Almaty." She's almost in tears. She goes, "How did you know?" Almaty is the capital of, I think it's the capital of Kazakhstan. May not be the capital, maybe one of the biggest cities. And she's like, "How do you know?" Another time it happened at Target. I'm talking to a person in Target, said the same thing. "Hey, do you mind if I ask?" And they go, "No problem." And they look at me like they're like, I'm never going to guess. And I look at them and I said, "All right, you're from Africa." And they're like, "Well, duh." And I go, "All right, you're from East Africa." And they're like, "Well, yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, you're from the Horn of Africa." And they're like, "Yeah." And I go, "You're from Eritrea." They're like, "How did you know that?" And I go, "You're from Asmara, which is the capital of Eritrea." This girl was almost in tears. She goes, "None of my friends have even heard of my country. And here you are, a stranger, and you know the city that I'm from. How did you know that?" It's a great way to bond and make new friends. Anyway, I got about an 80% success rate on that. It's a fun game I like to play.
That's cool, man. So how can we listen to the Slow Jams radio station?
I would love some new listeners. In fact, I know we're running short on time here, so I'll give all of my info about my Slow Jam show. If you go to my website, which is slowjams.com, from there you can learn a little bit about the show. But most importantly, there's a list of radio stations in cities and states of where you can listen. And so you can listen online anywhere in the world, but even cooler if you can listen on your local radio station. That'd be cool. I would love that. Slowjams.com. And then, of course, I'd love for you to become a citizen of Slowjamastan. And our website is slowjamastan.org. And as I mentioned, it's free to become a citizen.
Amazing. Anything else you want to add about how people can find you? Final message for the audience?
Absolutely. Hey, thank you for listening. If you got all the way through the podcast, I appreciate you putting up with my ramblings. I love radio. I love travel. I love all things Latin. If you are considering a move to Mexico, I'm just starting up my consultancy, so it's actually a good time to join forces with me because I need a few test subjects. So I plan to make a little bit of money on this consultancy in the future, but right now I need, kind of like an artist who's just starting out who needs some subjects to paint, or maybe a chef opening up a restaurant. He's going to do a soft launch and invite everybody to come in and eat for free. I would love a couple of subjects that are interested and really are ready to make the move to Mexico. I'd love to work with you and kind of work with you and work alongside you and introduce you to Playas de Tijuana, and show you around because I have some great contacts there and we're just kind of putting the whole model together. So you actually can learn with me. And I think it's a great place at the very least to investigate because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, here's a way you can move to another country. You could move to Mexico, but be very, very close. In fact, be 10 minutes away from seeing a Padres game in San Diego or going to IKEA or going to your doctor in San Diego, things like that.
Love it. Well, hey, man, we're happy to help you with the residency visa side of thing for your clients. But I wish you all the best of luck with this new venture. So we'll wrap it up there. I know we got a hard stop. So this has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, our guest today, the Sultan of Slowjamastan, the Free People's Republic, who knows what, of Slowjamastan, DJ Randy Williams, R-Dub. Thanks for joining us, man. I'm happy we finally got to do this.
Thank you guys so much. We'll talk to you again really soon, and I wish everybody all the luck and that all of their dreams come true, and your podcast is helping folks with that. So thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. And guys, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this. We put out 2 episodes a week with amazing guests like Randy, and you won't want to miss an episode. Ciao for now.